Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to continue the top 100 games of all time, going from 50 to 41. So we're in the upper half of games here. These are games that are going to start breaking into the 9 ratings, starting with number 46. That's where we're going to start rating at 9s. Now, without further ado though, let's get started with number 50. This is Marvel Legendary. So Marvel Legendary, I'm not going to get the whole box because we do have everything for this one. So it's a gigantic container. So we use those big white long boxes with just rows and rows of cards. So I'm just going to show you 2 of the cards that you always use. So Marvel Legendary is a deck building game that you are going to be picking a group of heroes from the Marvel Universe, pairing them up against a scenario, a scheme of some sort, and then a mastermind and his henchmen and villains that will be helping him to complete that scheme. So this game is very customizable, but at its core, it's a very straightforward deck building game. You draw 6 cards, you do what you can with those cards, and then you proceed to the next player's turn. So it has its ups and downs. There's a lot of customization, which is a lot of fun. But with that, you can get into some situations that are almost unwinnable. You also can get into some situations where you are so overpowered and strong, and it is super awesome to kind of do your best here. My favorite part of this game is the combinations of characters. As more and more expansions will come out, the roster of heroes just increases. You can find any hero that you want from any nook or cranny of the Marvel Universe and pair them with somebody else. And you can match up teams or colors, so you can really find synergies between any characters. They have really used a lot of cool deck building formulas and ideas, and the new ideas they have are just kind of opening up new possibilities. So I really enjoy the Marvel Legendary universe and the system itself. Great game, great theme. Marvel Legendary, my number 50. Number 49 is a game I don't have. This is Super Fantasy Brawl. So I played this with a friend of mine and I love it. It's fantastic. It's a head-to-head 2-player only game where you're going to be running a group of 3 champions. And these champions all have 5 cards that belong to them. So your deck is only going to be 15 cards large, and every turn you're going to be drawing 5 cards from your deck. So you're going to see everything in 3 rounds, and you're going to get to know these cards, be familiar with them, and get to know your opponent's cards and get familiar with those. But the system itself is so sound. You're trying to either knock out your opponent's characters each time you do to get a trophy, or complete objectives, which will give you a certain number of trophies depending on when you do it. So timing can be very important on these objectives. So I love that it's not just beat 'em up. You have objectives that you're trying to do as well, and that tied in with the rotating cards and the variety of abilities and the cast of characters is fantastic. My favorite part of this game is the action selection system. On your turn, you're going to refresh 3 cores, and these cores will be used to play cards that match the same color. So it's up to you whether you want to use a specific color of a card or use a basic ability that requires that colored core, because each card allows you to move a specific hero. So you could activate the same hero 3 times in one turn and really go off with them, or you could string along a set of combos with multiple heroes. So I really like the way the core system works. You can also use them to react on your opponent's turn, but that means you have less cores to use on your turn. So I love this system. I think they did a great job. They knocked it out of the park. Great production, huge minis, fantastic game. This is Super Fantasy Brawl, my number 49. Number 48 is another large miniatures game, which I really prefer at the 2-player count. This is Batman Gotham City Chronicles. So this game puts you in the role of Batman or the villains in his rogues gallery, and your job is to complete a mission of some sort on either side. So knocking people out, kind of like in Super Fantasy Brawl, is one thing you can do to help progress on this mission, but generally you have something bigger going on. You have to manipulate the characters at your command in order to take control of the situation. This game has 2 separate modes. It has the hero mode. It's kind of like a mission mode. You're going to be controlling these characters with these dashboards, and it's a 1 versus many, while the heroes have a dashboard and the villain has this really cool command console that they're going to be using to manipulate their units on the board. And that's kind of my favorite part of this game, is that command module. And that leads to my favorite mechanism in this is the versus mode. So the versus mode actually gives you a second command module, and this is for that 2-player experience. And this command module, both players are controlling troops with it. And the versus mode does a really great way of having both players to use this really cool component and activation system to complete missions. Now, once again, it's not about just killing everybody, it's about succeeding at the mission. So when you pick your roster of characters, you can choose characters that are specifically good for this mission, and now you and the opponent have this tailored team to go up against it. And sometimes you can kind of throw all that to the wall and just pick a character that you really like to use. I had watched the Harley Quinn series recently, and so I, of course, created a Poison Ivy Harley Quinn and all of her goons gang against the Gotham City Police Department, Jim Gordon and whatnot. It was a blast. Had a lot of fun with it. The scenarios are great. The art is awesome on the maps themselves, and the system of using the command boards to move your pieces around and the allocation of your resource cubes and whatnot adds a really cool feeling to the overall game. So that's my number 48, Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Number 47 is a much smaller game. This is Cockroach Poker Royale. Cockroach Poker is a bluffing game where you're going to be giving these cards to your other players, your opponents, and telling them a statement. This is a something. This is a rat, this is a cockroach, and it's up to them to either believe you, not believe you, or give it to somebody else, and it's not their problem anymore. So I really like the quick nature of this game. It's very goofy in its art style and its play. And my favorite part of this game, especially in this expansion, is you have some new kind of twists on the game itself. It adds a little bit more variety and I think fun than the base game. It adds these royal cards. They have little crowns on them. They provide a penalty if you take them. And they're also their own suit. So they're kind of dual suit. They're royal and whatever type of creature they are. So if you take it, you have to take that penalty in addition. So they can be really scary when you claim something's a royal, even though you might be bluffing completely. They also add these two new cards that are nothing and one that's everything. So they add something to think about when you're starting to throw cards around. And the coolest part about them is when they're revealed that that's what they are, then they actually go to the player's hand that lost them. So you have to play them out. So I really like these new additions to Cockroach Poker. So that's my number 47, Cockroach Poker Royale. Now, number 46, this is where we start with the nines. And this is another deck builder that inches out legendary a bit for me. And this is Heroes of Tenefyr. This is a new one that I've played recently this year, but I'm so impressed with this game and the flow of the game itself. Now, in most deck building games, your turns can take a while because you're kind of comboing and playing every single card in your hand. But in Heroes of Tenefyr, the gameplay is very quick and it's very highly cooperative. In this game, it kind of takes a twist on general deck building where every round you're going to be going into a dungeon of some sort. And every turn you're in this dungeon, you reveal or you look at the top three cards of your deck, and you can decide if you want to use that to do the best you can, or if you want to discard them and just draw another three. However, once you run out of cards in your deck, you're out of the dungeon, and it's up to your companions, everybody else that's in the dungeon, to beat whatever you're fighting. So if you exhaust yourself too early, you might not be able to help at all later, and your opponent will only, your friend, your companion will only have their three cards to deal with the entire rest of the dungeon at a time. So I really love the decisions in this game. It has different classes that you can play as. And my favorite part of this is the cards themselves are double-sided. On one half, they have the enemy that you're fighting, and when you slay them, you actually add the card you fought to your own personal deck. So you can kind of time who's going to slay the monster, because if you slay a specific monster, they might have an ability that's really strong for your companion, and you could say, oh man, I'll just do a couple damage, but you need to get that finishing blow. There are even some cards that let you switch cards as you play, or get rid of cards in your deck, which can be, once again, double-sided because that deck is your stamina for the dungeon. So I really love the deck building in this game. It makes me feel like I'm playing a CCG, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic, as I'm sifting through my deck looking for cards, or really custom tailoring abilities. I really enjoy this one. That's Heroes of Tenefyr, my number 46. Number 45 is another game I don't have with me because these are disposable games. They are legacy versions of Pandemic. Pandemic Legacy, all three seasons have been knockout hits for me and my wife. We're lucky enough to play all of them, and I think it's a fantastic cooperative game. Great two-player, great family game, great couples game. Just a fantastic game, fantastic experience. Now, they are one and done, so you play them, you get rid of them, because they do have a lot of aspects in the game that are spoilery, and once you know, it's pretty easy to anticipate these events and what could happen. So Pandemic Legacy system, though, takes the Pandemic experience and adds new mini expansions as you play, with discovery elements and tough choices as you go through them. So I really enjoy this. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here, but if I had to rank those three in order, I would probably put Pandemic Legacy Season 0 at the top as my number 1 of this series. I'd put Pandemic Legacy Season 1 as my number 2, and Season 3 as my last one. I really like the kind of twists and turns of this isn't a spoiler, the Pandemic, whenever you have a outburst happen, usually you just add more cubes around. The way that the Season 0 has changed it, some event will happen based on where the outbreak occurs. You'll reveal a card from the bottom of the deck, and that will tell you what will happen. So I really like that change to the system. The theme is great, and I love the little passports that you have in that game. So Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is on the top for sure, but the whole system, every one that comes out, if there's more that come out, we're gonna play them. They're fantastic. I strongly recommend Pandemic Legacy, all seasons. My number 44 is Time Stories. Now I'm holding Hadal Project because I'm actually loaning a friend our copy of Time Stories. Time Stories is a game where you are going to be time traveling. You work for an agency that fixes blips in the time stream. Something happened that's ruining everything. Your job is to go back, figure out what it is, and fix it. Sometimes you'll know exactly what you need to fix. Maybe you are rescuing somebody, or you are sometimes just having to figure it out on your own. There's sometimes communication errors, but ultimately it's your job to fix the problem. And this game is broken up into 2 series. You have the white box series, which was the original edition, and then you have this new version, which is standalone. This is the blue box series. Now, I really enjoy this first one of the blue box series. I hated the second one. So this one is not ranked as highly for me because this game has a lot of highs, but also a lot of lows. So some of these missions are best experiences of my gaming career, and some of them are absolute duds. So it's really hit or miss, but every time a new one comes out, I am so excited to try it and see what's going to happen next. So I love the system, and my favorite part of the game is the receptacles that you inhabit. So the premise of the game is you're time traveling, right? But they can't send your physical form back in time, so what they do is they project your consciousness onto a character that lived during that time period. So the characters that you inhabit are generally going to have their strengths and weaknesses because it's them. You're that person. You're inhabiting their body. So in the very first one, you're going into an insane asylum, and so, as you can imagine, you might have their negatives and positives of whoever you inhabit. In later missions, it's going to change. Yes, if you are a dog, you might be able to use that to your advantage. If you are a famous person, you might be able to use that to your advantage. So it's really interesting to try to predict what your character might be during the scenario. And in the earlier scenarios, in the white box series, you're going to be able to repeat timelines, so you can switch up characters and think, okay, maybe this person might be helpful for this situation, or you might have a situation where a character might be useful in a situation, so you can plan for that. So I really like the time story system. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here, but the stories are great. Some of my favorites are the Egyptian themed one, Under the Mask. I really like Prophecy of Dragons, and Estrella Drive and the original are amazing. I also really like Marcy Case, and I love Hadal Project as well. I think they did a great job with this new system, with this intro to the whole blue box cycle. They dropped the ball in the second one, but I'm holding out that the third one's going to be awesome to make up for Midsummer's Night. So that's my number 44 Time Stories. Number 43 is another deck builder, so that's a third on this list. It is Dune Imperium. Now, much like Heroes of Tennifer, it takes deck building and adds a huge twist to it, where the downtime is dramatically decreased because they add worker placement to the game. Dune Imperium takes the Dune IP and has you trying to get to 10 points. So it's a race to 10 points, but the way you're doing those points are by winning conflicts on Dune itself, by becoming allies with the people that occupy this universe, and by collecting spice cards, or by triggering abilities on special cards you control. So this race is really fascinating, and my favorite part is the deck building itself, because every time you buy a card for your deck, it's got a couple of symbols on it. Now, the symbols allow you to place a worker on a specific part of the map, whether it be on one of the alliance tracks, in space or outside of the area, on the planet itself, or in an area where you can collect spice or you can collect money to get more resources. So I really like the importance of the deck building in this game and how every card you add unlocks new opportunities, and is really crucial to get cards that are actually going to benefit you. If you fill a deck with crap, it's going to be awful. So you really have to be selective in the cards that you choose. I really enjoy being able to tailor your deck to meet a specific strategy, and the characters that you have in the game are really cool. This game is super thematic, which is really impressive that this Euro-style game was able to really pull in that Dune IP into it. So I really enjoy Dune Imperium, and I'm very excited to get the new upgraded components coming out soon. So I strongly recommend this one, Dune Imperium. My number 42 is one of my highest rated party games. I think it might be the highest one. And this is Deception Murder in Hong Kong. Deception has you playing police officers, and one of your fellow police officers has died. And so it's up to you to figure out what has happened here. No one actually is dead in this game. You are just trying to solve a mystery. However, one of you is the murderer, and you work for the police force. That person will pick a piece of evidence and a piece of the murder weapon, or how the crime was committed. So it could be drowning, or a machete, or an electrical socket, something like that. And you'll have these cards in front of you that relate to whatever you're choosing. Now here's the twist. Everybody has a set of 8 of those cards in front of them. So no one is really sure what actually happened. It's up to this kind of moderator player, the forensic scientist, to give clues to help out with figuring out who actually killed them, how they were killed, where it happened. It is really cool because this forensic scientist is able to use these large placards that give clues out and help narrow down the suspects. This game is great because everyone is always involved. The forensic scientist is putting out clues, everybody is making a case for different people, and everybody has something in front of them that could be associated to the crime. It's up to the murderer to be crafty on which cards they pick, but it's also up to everyone else to come up with good cases and figure out this puzzle. So I really enjoy Deception Murder in Hong Kong, and my favorite part of this game is honestly the different evidence and the different murder weapons. It's kind of insane the amount of variety that exists in the game. And I love that the murderer gets to pick and choose what they want, because you might get really funny situations where somebody was speared with a bamboo pole and they had their cosmetic face mask there the whole time. So maybe they were in a spa where it happened. It's up for the forensic scientist to kind of weave this story around those cards you choose. So I really enjoy this game. This is my number 42, Deception Murder in Hong Kong. The last game on this list is my number 41, Coinbra. Coinbra is a dice drafting game where you'll be picking dice, and these dice allow you to buy cards, which will give you special powers. And in addition, the color of the dice will trigger a specific track, which will give you resources or movement on a main board, or just straight up score you points. So this game is so smooth. Every time you play, it's very straightforward. You're going to be getting 3 dice, using them to do stuff. And I love the decisions that you have to make here. The higher your die, the first you're going to go in picking, but that die is also how much you're going to have to pay for that card. And then the color activates a track. So each die has 3 distinct properties that when you look at it, you're like, you have to weigh them all at the same time. I love the flow of the game. I love the pace of the game. I love how clear the cards are, and the artwork is gorgeous. My favorite part of this game is actually the effects on the cards themselves, and how the more familiar you become with the cards, the more you can anticipate what might be coming. The cards themselves are really cool. Some allow you to move on this general map. Some give you effects depending on the dice that you pick during the game, so it might incentivize you to go down a different path. And a lot of them provide endgame scoring, which now becomes public information for others, so people can kind of plan and move around you, which might make you in turn try to go for those higher number of dice. This game really shines at the 4-player count, because everybody is acting on every other player. But at lower player counts, they do have some dummy dice in there that will mimic another player, and I think those work really well as well. So this is my number 41, Coinbra. I've been playing a lot of this recently, and this game is wonderful. Really reminded me of how good this is, and I think this is a great game for the dice drafting genre. So that's my number 41, Coinbra. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this list, and things just get better from here. The 9s stop around number 20. So these next 2 videos will have all 9s, and then 20 through 10 23 1 will be all 10s. So pretty impressive games up here. These are the best of the best. Really enjoy them. Thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong.